or so, will you, babe? I want to make cookies for when Isabel gets home from school." Izzy was Audrey's 5-year-old niece, a fabulous kid who had her grandparents wrapped around her little finger. "Aren't there any of the ones Jake made left?" Her mother blushed. "No." Audrey laughed, as much at her mother's sweet tooth as in relief that she was eating. "I'll ask him to make you some more." "Don't you dare! That boy already feeds us more than he ought. I've probably gained 10 pounds since the two of you started dating." Dating. That was such an insipid word to describe her relationship with Jake Tripp. Regardless, her mother needed the extra calories. The cancer and treatments had taken a lot of fat off her frame, and she was only now looking more like her usual self. "He said he's bringing chicken pot pie tonight. Gracie's recipe." Anne smiled. "If he proposes, you'd better say yes." Audrey started. She and Jake had only gotten together in June, but they'd loved each other since they were children. The idea of life without him was unfathomable, but she hadn't fantasized about marrying him since she was 16 and wasn't about to let herself start again. It wasn't like either of them was ever going to be free of the other, so why try to put expectations on it? "Have a good nap." Her mother left the room, and Audrey waited until she was gone to get up from the table and clear the remnants of their late lunch. Her weakened arm made the process take a little longer than it ought, but she eventually got everything put away. She took butter out of the fridge to soften for cookie making later and carried her laptop into the living room. Technically, she was off work for the foreseeable future, recovering, but she needed to check her email and make sure all was good with the Boston office. What she really wanted to do, however, was work on the proposal for a youth facility she planned to show her boss, Angeline Beharry, a renowned psychologist. The two of them had spent a lot of time recently discussing a remark Audrey made once about hoping to someday run a facility for troubled teens. Early next year, Maine was planning to close a couple of state-run properties, creating an opportunity she never would have thought would be available to her at this stage in her career. Angeline was interested, as having a private facility would greatly improve the efficiency of conducting research. Over the years, Angeline had indulged her, spoiled her, even, but she didn't want to count on that always happening, and she didn't want to always be in Angeline's shadow. Audrey wanted to earn her achievements. Still, she wanted this dream to become reality bad enough that if Angeline did want to indulge her, Audrey wouldn't try to stop her. Lately, Jake had begun to show interest as well. She didn't know exactly how much money he had, but it was a lot, and his backing would allow her that much more control over the project. The proper phrasing and outlining was important, though. It all started on paper. She was typing away, ignoring the slight ache in her arm, when her cell phone buzzed beside her on the sofa. She glanced at the screen. It was her friend Nev asking where she was and could Nev swing by. Audrey's reply was, "Mums and yes." She hadn't seen the other woman in a few days, and she'd welcome the company. Working on the proposal didn't take the place of having a full-time job. Nev's car, the familiar unmarked state police car, pulled into the drive a few minutes later. Audrey opened the door before she could ring the bell or knock. "Mom's napping," she explained in a low voice when her friend raised a brow. Nev nodded. She and Audrey were the same age and had chosen careers in which they could help people, but that was where the similarities ended for the most part, except maybe for resting bitch face. Nev was a tiny bit shorter, her complexion several shades darker, and her hair a riot of corkscrew curls that could be achieved only through genetics. "How's she doing?" she asked as she crossed the threshold into the house. "Better." Audrey closed the door on the cold November air. She hadn't reacclimatized to it yet. Jake laughed at her every time she insisted that Maine was colder than it had been before she left. "Much better than we expected, to be honest." The other woman toed off her boots and shrugged out of her coat. "And you? The arm doing okay?" "Yeah, it aches a bit, but it's healing." Once Nev hung up her coat, Audrey gestured for her to walk ahead. "Dad said you'll be tender for a while. He also said you must have the devil looking after you, that it didn't tear through all the muscle." "I'm sure he did," she replied dryly. Nev's father had arrested her and her best friend Maggie for the murder of Clint Jones, Maggie's father, almost 19 years ago.